Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about Invasion USA. 3,000 immigrants per day pass through the Panama-Darien Gap area. Venezuelans, Chinese, Afghani, and Arab people. It is known that Hezbollah has been in Venezuela since the 90s. In 1994, there was an airline flight traveling from Cologne, Panama to Panama City that was bombed mid-air. Then 24 hours later in Argentina, there was a bomb that killed 85 people. So there have been military operations or terrorist operations for these groups like Hezbollah and other extremist groups in Latin America for appears now about 30 years. But there are also many Iranians traveling to Venezuela because of how easy it is to get a visa. There is a village in Lebanon where many people speak Spanish fluently. It is called Ain Baal, as in Baal, Baal worship. It is a community of Shia Muslims. Now, I will remind you that Shia Muslims was started by a group of Hashashins, assassins. Those are the extremists. Not all of them, but the motherfuckers that are most turned up are the Shia and not the Sunni. There is also a Hezbollah community in Panama that speaks fluent Spanish. The infrastructure in the Panamanian jungle is expanding with new roads and more buses carrying people from the jungle all the way up into Guatemala. What people should really begin to understand is that there are a series of events that are showing a trend of invasive maneuvers from hostile communities that are working their way into the American southern border. People always seem to think that all the fighting regarding terrorists in the Middle East is over there and it's going to stay over there. No, that is coming over here. It has been working its way over here for quite a while. They would fly straight into New York City if they could. And some would have you think they flew the planes into the Twin Towers, but we all know that was done through the assistance of dark entities within the deep state. Now you have people that are coming up through South America, through Central America, and in through Mexico into the United States. And there are forces within the United States government that are very sympathetic to these groups that are opening the door to create a path for these hostile people. Now, one would only have to look and see how the Mujahideen and Al-Qaeda and ISIS were either funded, assisted, or created by American intelligence organizations. Because of this, what they were able to do is create wars that generated money for the military-industrial complex. So what you see here is the beginning of the next wave of small guerrilla fights that will be happening on American soil because it appears that people in the government want to help make this happen to keep money going into the coffers of the military-industrial complex. What will that look like for Americans? A real shit show.
Look, there's several different aspects of this, but the first one I think that we're missing the most obvious is the war over in Israel. But I don't know how to say it without getting shadow banned. So what would happen if you had a couple Palestinians come over the Mexican border, do some bombing, whether they're real or not, and then all of a sudden this is how we've gotten into every war. This goes back to 9/11, World War II. We knew about Pearl Harbor. So if Israel is supposed to be our ally, and the Palestinians, we like Palestinians, but we don't like them as much as we like the Israelis. All it would take is a Palestinian or some dark-skinned brown person coming over the border from Mexico, doing a bomb, and all of a sudden now we're down with Israel and we ain't fucking with Palestine anymore. And that's what I'm saying. This is how these things have always started. Is that there's already a war, a conflict, and America is kind of halfway. We're interested. We don't care. But then all of a sudden something happens, whether it was planned or not planned, 9/11 planned or not planned, and all of a sudden we're fighting everybody over the oil again. You got to remember, we were in high school when the first Gulf War, all that shit was supposed to be done. I thought we saved the day, Kuwait oil, but all it takes is a couple buildings going down from planes, then we're right back at it again. Um, Also, Roscoe, there are several examples of people coming over the border that we just kind of forget.
When people talking about the border, everybody think it's Mexico because Mexico is
Yes,
right there.
yes.
They're probably maybe 30% of the people that are coming to America now. The rest of them, 50% of those are from Central America, and the remaining 20% are from Asian countries. I'm talking about the people that enter. The demographic of the people that enter are only probably 30% Mexican people, which is crazy because Mexico's right there. But for the longest time, it was like that. But then their quality of life became better,
Improved.
and
Yep,
it became better
yep.
and better in Mexico. And so then they were like, well, we don't really need to go to America because a lot of people stopped coming right around before the pandemic. And they were like, well, shit,
Well,
man, it's getting so bad. I mean, we need to fucking go up there.
thing about Mexico, what they do now is when they're ready to start their business in Mexico, they come to America, get some seed money, and go back to Mexico and start their business and do the shit they need to
Yeah,
do.
but people in
Um,
India do that with education.
yes, yeah. But hold it. Let's get back to the border. I remember in '90 whatever, Bill Clinton was in office. I remember being in Memphis, and I remember reading this article where the border in Canada. See, people we love to talk about the brown people down south, but there's a Canadian border, and I remember this border
Right.
guard had
And
caught.
and Chinese soldiers have been caught
Yeah,
in
coming up.
Canada.
Yes. So I remember, like I said, the first time I read about this was like in the '90s. Like, please forgive me, I just remember Clinton was in office, and it was a female border patrol caught some Arabs coming over, and she handled them. She caught them, and so like I said, we love to talk about the Mexican border. We love to talk about motherfuckers coming over through the Gulf back when we were kids. Remember the rafts coming over from Haiti and that whole the old good days. But people, the least guarded border is the Canadian border. That's the border where motherfuckers could just drive over. So what we're saying is people literally go to other countries. Just like I can't find America directly, but I can go to Canada. I can go to some place in the Caribbean. I can go to Mexico and make my way into America. And another example was remember Malcolm X's grandson. Remember that they had took his visa or whatever. So what did he do? He went to Mexico so he can go overseas. He was doing big work overseas with different countries. I think Libya was one of the countries. So if
But he died
you
under
can
mysterious circumstances.
in Mexico, yeah, that's the crazy part because the black Mexicans protested. We had talked about this like many podcasts ago. I said look up the protests from the black Mexicans, and it was way bigger than you expected. And I think that caught everybody. If that was a CIA kill, the CIA was scared after that because they did not know the backing that he had down there. But what we're saying is that we got three or four distractions going on right now with this whole border situation. And while this is going on, right now, people are letting all these brown skinned people in our country, which is fine. I'm brown. I have no problem with it. But the thing is, why is this going on? There's two things going on right now. One, they think that black folks and these young folks don't want to work anymore. So this is the same thing they did to black people to punish us. When back in the day, when they let down the Mexican border and let all the Mexicans in, black folks were the ones doing most of those jobs when it came to trades, excuse me, carpentry, plumbing, flooring, and all this stuff. And black folks was doing those jobs. Then we decided, like, hey, we're going to start sending our kids to college. And so white folks said, okay, cool, we'll punish y'all for that by letting all these other motherfuckers in. And they let them in, and they're working those certain jobs. Well, we're right back at that place where people like you live in a big city. I'm in a smaller city, but Walmart still ain't open 24 hours. So they got all these jobs. People don't want to work them. So what do? They let people in from other countries that will work them. If you go to Burger King right now, again, I'm not saying something racist, but if you go into one of these 24-hour joints, most of them are run by Mexicans now. I'm not saying they own them, but I'm saying the people that are working, if you go to a restaurant now and it's open after 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be Mexicans because people who come over here don't mind working. They don't mind doing that. But also, there are hidden agendas, and that's what Roscoe is telling you. You have Chinese nationals sneaking in. You have Arab nations. You have unfriendly people sneaking in amongst these people to get their agenda across. Now, the problem is what's going to happen when one of these false flags happens again, and then you find out that they came over through that border. Like I said, white folks love talking about Mexicans coming over here, cartels, this, that, and other, but they're not talking about the Arabs. They're not talking about the Middle Eastern people. They're not talking about the Chinese people who are sneaking over through the same border, doing the exact same situation. So I just think it's odd that you pick and choose which brown people you don't like. And if we need to secure the border, we need to secure it from everybody, not not just not just these political prisoners, but the fact that you're letting people over here and because nobody wants to work, that's some bullshit, bro. You're fucking up your own people. Excuse me, you're fucking up your own economy.
When the immigrants exit the jungle section of the Darien Gap, there are two camps for them to rest and then board buses: the Las Blancas and the San Vicente camps for brown people. The Chinese specifically have a separate camp with better conditions. In April of 2022, in April of 2022, Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, visited the Chinese camp. Alejandro Mayorkas used to be a board member of HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Hold on a second. Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Okay.
You said age or age?
AID.
Hebrew. Curious.
Alex Mayorkas is a child of Cuban immigrants. Okay. HIAS has an office 120 feet from the gate of the Chinese immigrant camp. Full stop. Jews are only 6 million worldwide. Okay. And most of them are in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, New York, and Florida and California. So why do they have a Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society at the Darien Gap in Panama? Like there's just tons and tons of Jewish people. Listen to this shit. November 23rd, 2020. HIAS publishes a statement congratulating board member Alejandro Mayorkas on his DHS nomination. Let's put this together.
Homeland Security.
At the same time, this guy is the DHS secretary. He's also on the board for HIAS. 2 years later, visits the office of HIAS down there in Panama, right there by the Darien Gap. Watch this shit. So you have this one chunk, this country, this Panama Canal country, this highly contested region where all these illegal immigrants are passing through there. Department of Homeland Security Secretary comes down there to visit that area, but he lands with a party of 4 Black Hawk helicopters and he walks straight into the HIAS office. Why is the office there? Why is he going in there? What the fuck is going on? HIAS uses donated money to bring Hezbollah up from Latin American countries.
Man.
Since receiving blowback and scrutiny, the HIAS sign has been removed from the front of the building. Oh, so now you don't want people to know what you're doing there and who you are. What they're doing is using NGOs to mask the covert operations of intelligence agencies, bringing in people that work as sleepers that will be activated for false flag operations. The first thing I thought about when I heard this is the description of the guys wearing tactical gear that were in these school shootings that would show up and murder these children. Now, to do something like that, you've either got to be a severely twisted individual, or you have to be a foreigner, or you have to be both. Clearly, you're both. The way Americans contractors can go into a foreign country and just pull the trigger with no remorse, the same way foreigners will come over here and do the same thing with no remorse, especially if it's children. Because these aren't your children. You have no connection to
Nope.
these children. So you can go in
And
there
that's the
and you can
people.
just mow these kids down. So what they're doing is they're bringing up terrorists that have been stationed in South America the same way Americans are stationed in Germany. They work their way up into America. Then they're supplied by people who give them money, aid, and weapons. And when the time is right, they get their orders and they go in and they kill kids in schools. Now, there's those of you that are listening to this, they're like, oh, that's so fucking crazy. Hey, asshole, listen, you're that same person that didn't think that some type of chemical compound could be squirted into your body and everybody would be forced to get it. Well, guess what? The shit happened. So, you're also the same person that didn't think that the government would attack its own people. Well, guess what? It has plenty of times with chemical warfare. And it also did the same shit with the Tuskegee experiment. Okay? It's happened over and over and over again. The problem is that we live in a Janus society. Two-faced. Janus is the two-faced deity, the Roman Empire. And Janus shows one face to one side and one to the other. So, of course, you present this face of peace and love and prosperity and democracy. And on the other hand, you have this twisted Dr. and Jekyll side that goes and does all this dirty shit behind closed doors. The problem is the people that are defending these agencies aren't the people that we're talking about. The people that we're talking about are the ones that are running these operations. Go ahead, man. I know you got some shit to say.
The most important part is the conflict of interest. How are you the Secretary of Homeland Defense, but you belong to another organization called, you said, Hayes?
Highest.
So let me get Hayes.
HIAS.
Highest. So that's like a motherfucker being the head of the NAACP, but they also belong to the Klan. That's a conflict of interest. You can't have both jobs. Like literally, if you're in charge of Homeland Defense in securing borders, but then you belong to an organization that breaks through those borders, isn't that treason? Where is the? There's an issue there, but we see this stuff all the time, and we just let it go. We don't complain about it. But yeah, right, I'll always say right off the bat, like once you start naming these organizations, I'm like, this dude or this individual, because I'm assuming it's a male, is literally going. They're setting us up for failure. But this is also whenever you see these lists of all these people who are Jewish in these prominent positions, it's one thing when we complain about the entertainment industry. It's another thing when you look at the government of America. You have what was it, like 40% of them are Jewish in some way, say before, some crazy number. That's the list that Kanye put out. You see several people put the same list out, and you realize like, wow, you have all these heads of companies, you have all these government individuals who are politicians, interns, all the way up. And like my brother just told you,
but check this out.
Jews make up.
But here's the thing. Let me interrupt this for a second because, okay, if you ever work in the film industry, you'll see Jewish people and a lot of Jewish people, and I'm like, damn, a lot of fucking Jewish people. But
Dave Chappelle said it.
But check this shit out. Then if you go and you do any work in the music industry, there's Jewish people, but look, by contrast, there's a lot of black people, right? Nobody is stopping anybody from getting these jobs, right? The only thing is that when it comes to the jobs that are controlling shit,
Yes.
it's the same demographic over and over and over. And I'm like, how is this possible? How is this possible? These same motherfuckers that are running the talkie business of fucking movies, you know what I'm saying, are controlling the fucking music industry and radio. So I'm like,
Hey,
hold up,
okay,
dog. Like, y'all motherfuckers controlling all this shit?
everything. What a coincidence. But hold it, Roscoe. Me and you started having this conversation yesterday off the air, but we didn't get to finish. And I was bringing up the KRS One pointed it out. And back in the day, back when Sugar Hill Records started, back when hip hop first started, there was a black lady running hip hop. And he said they couldn't wait to get rid of her. And she was like, look, he said, one of the problems is black folks don't like doing business with black folks. That is our own brainwashing. We are brainwashed. So he said at one point in time, hip hop was run by black people, but we didn't like dealing with black folks. Some shady stuff went on. Next thing you know, this industry is taking over again, the same way the music industry, the same. And another thing, when people sit here and say that it was done by accident, no. Back in the day, the Italians and the Jews, the mafia ran all this stuff, and the Jews and the mafia made a deal, and that's when the Jews took over Hollywood. And you can look this stuff up. This is not conjecture. This is not us like, oh, we making up
It
stuff.
didn't happen organically, is what he is saying.
Yeah, come on, say it. It wasn't just okay, a bunch of no. You had two criminal organizations, and one criminal organization bought the rights from another criminal organization, and then that's when
Right.
we start seeing the things.
So
we
let
see
me
happen
draw a
now.
corollary to this. So look at this shit. So then you have the children and great grandchildren running this stuff that was started by criminals. The same way you have these trust fund kids whose great grandparents and grandparents and parents are all skull and bones. And then they want to act
Whoa.
like, oh, well, I didn't do nothing wrong. You know, I shouldn't have to pay reparations. Let me bring this 360 degrees back to the beginning real quick. And these immigrants, illegal immigrants, okay, I ain't even got through all my shit yet, but listen, let's just talk about money for a second. In Los Angeles, immigrants who don't have credentials to work in the United States, meaning illegal, can get a credit card thanks to a pilot program run by who? The Bank of America, who has done hella shady shit in the past. The bank is hoping to tap a fast growing market by offering credit cards to illegal immigrants without social security numbers. Bank of America is testing a new credit card program at 50 Los Angeles branches. Applicants don't need a social security number or a traditional credit check to qualify. Motherfucker.
Look, yeah, I gotta have a credit check just to get her apartment,
Hold
but you
up.
don't need a credit check to get a credit card.
Hold up. But they do need to have a Bank of America checking account with no recent history of bounced checks. Critics
Nobody
are
even uses.
condemning the program, saying the bank is knowingly marketing credit cards to illegal immigrants. Under the pilot program, cardholders typically put up a deposit to guarantee payment of their credit card bills. They also pay a relatively high interest rate, in some cases, more than 21%. So, I got a
It's
couple
a
things I want
secured
to say.
account. Yeah.
I got a couple things I want to say. I go to the bank all the time to make deposits and shit like that. I pay attention to the different neighborhoods I go to. I pay attention to who the tellers are. I pay attention to who the customers are in the bank. I'm looking at some of these motherfuckers and I'm like, you have a solid credit history, huh? For real?
Really,
I'm like,
really.
okay. All right, cool, man. Whatever. I'm seeing this shit over and over and over, but it's at specific banks. Because I'm going to tell you something. This is the South. Just like the West is still the West, this is still the South. And let me tell you something. There's some white ass banks in this city. And I have been in there and I've done business with them. Those motherfuckers are not allowing that bullshit in there. And I'm like, that's interesting. Because I notice when I go to certain banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they always got a bunch of immigrants in there. And I'm like, okay, but how come like when I go to say Chase Bank or I go to any of these other banks, SunTrust, which is now Truist, they don't have all that immigrant traffic in there?
I can answer that
Because,
question for you,
go
brother.
ahead.
Well, you made some very good points, but what's the most important point? Wasn't Bank of America founded by an immigrant? Bank of America was founded by an Italian dude back in the day. And those roots have not changed much. They fuck with immigrants. And when you say that kind of stuff, and the other thing that you said was really deep, you were talking about how some of these families got money, started out doing illegal stuff, and they become. What about the Kennedys? The Kennedys love talking about. This is the point that Killer Mike made. He said, "I think it's funny how white folks love to talk about their family doing moonshine and doing illegal stuff, and they're legal now." The Kennedys started out doing moonshine with whiskey, and then when prohibition was over, they patented. They own the rights to whiskey. Now I don't know if they still. I don't think they have it anymore. But remember, every bottle of alcohol sold, they got like a nickel from. That's that shit. It started out illegal, but when the shit came back legal, they made sure that they made their legal money on it. So the Kennedys, like I said, they love. They'll tell you how they got their money. They'll tell you that they started out doing illegal stuff. These other ones, not so much. They love to hide that shit. So, oh yeah, my uncle was mafia 3 times removed. Nah, the nigga ain't removed. Fuck that shit. So, but yeah, like you said, these banks, Wells Fargo and Bank of America, they fuck with immigrants. These other ones, I think like Chase Manhattan is Chase is from is a American bank. There's no, they don't have that connection. They don't have that immigrant connection. You want
Rockefellers are behind Chase.
yes, yeah. So, like, you know exactly where they are not. Well, the Rockefellers, I'm sure that at some point in time, white folks, but these motherfuckers is American and they don't fuck with foreigners.
JP Morgan Chase is the full name of the bank.
He made his money off steel, then he went into banking. These motherfuckers is wealthy, but they don't fuck with foreigners.
See, look, all they had to do was teach the kid how to ride the bike so they could take off the training wheels. That was the Jewish mob handing the reins to their kids and their grandkids. Now, that mob is still doing business, but they have their own country now. And Mossad is the mob for that country. They are the ones who are behind Hayes, who has a plant in the form of Mayorkas, who is making it easy for these people to get into the United States. Think about it. This guy is the head of Homeland Security. Homeland Security, an additional organization that was created September 11th because they felt that the FBI couldn't handle all this shit and the U.S. government couldn't handle all this shit. But wait a minute now. Hold on a second. The Patriot Act was written months before September 11th. They just waited for September 11th so they could take it off the shelf, open it up, and get signatures. There's no way they would create that overnight like that. It was done ahead of time. The idea to create the Department of Homeland Security was the Justice Department and the State Department working together. Those two entities right there, the State Department and the Justice Department, are responsible for all types of dirt. We have talked about it before, about how the Justice Department, the DOJ, has created all types of problems. You go back to the 50s and the 60s, and how in the book, The Naked Capitalist, it talks about how the Justice Department was involved in bending the laws to allow criminals to do what they wanted, to allow communists to infiltrate parts of the government. So Mayorkas is a Cuban immigrant. What's to say this guy's parents didn't have communist ideologies? And they taught that to their son, who was probably influenced in college. So now this guy is in charge of the third most powerful government entity in the United States. Nobody sees a problem with that? That this guy is on the board of Hayes?
I told you, conflict of interest. We see it all the time, but nobody points it out. Nobody calls it out. They just let it like, oh, I'm more worried about my job than the fact that a foreign entity has this many representatives in our embedded in our government.
And that's how you get these scenarios. That's how you have this compartmentalization where you could go to an organization complaining about something that's happened and they have no idea about what these people are doing because they're not in the club. And so with this compartmentalization, they're able to hide all these different things unless you can zoom out and have a 30,000 view or a low Earth orbit view or an intergalactic view of what's going on, and you can move all the pieces around the chessboard, and everything is supposed to look organic, like it happened by accident. None of this shit is happening by accident. School shootings, the immigrant caravans. Yo, none of these immigrant people get up in their countries in the morning and say, we about to start a caravan. We're going to have a moving Bonnaroo that just comes all the way up. We'll have a moving Burning Man or Electric Daisy Festival that just travels from Central America all the way up into the United States. A caravan. No.
Thousands of miles.
You know what that is? You know what that is? It's the white guy that was at the January 6th situation. Insurrection. And he was the guy, the FBI informant that was trying to get everybody hyped up talking about, let's go in there. We got to go in there. That guy. That guy has some counterpart, some young hipster counterpart who has ties to intelligence agencies or some type of like NGO that's just completely saturated with intelligence agency people, is getting together these astroturf movements to bring these poor ass people together who aren't organized, to organize them so they're traveling together so it looks like some human centipede type of shit, where it's a whole bunch of people moving together like a bunch of bison moving across the Great Plains.
But the problem with this, there's two outcomes. there are literally Muslims that were in Texas, mind their own business, and then some FBI guys riled them up, and they became a movement. The next thing you know, they were really doing shit. They're like, oh
Really?
shit, this got out of control.
They were just
Yeah,
minding their business,
they just mind their own
and
business.
the
They were just
FBI guy just riled them up. You don't think
yeah.
that's you think that's totally organic?
Yeah, no, no. Okay, that's the whole point that you were making. Like, so I'm over here. Yeah, I don't like America. I don't like white folks, but I'm going to work though. I'm running my convenience store in the black community. I'm just sitting here. Then all of a sudden, you get some chatter on one of these damn groups, and then all of a sudden, I was like, you know what, man, kill Whitey, and they start saying crazy shit, and they're like, I agree. The next thing you know, they got a little organization, and they're monitoring the organization, and nothing happened. Then all of a sudden it gets out of control. Like, wait a minute, they're really planning on doing something. Then they don't get there fast enough. You riled these guys up, but you didn't get there fast enough. And we saw that with that whole Fast and the Furious, where uh, cartels are coming to America to buy guns, and they weren't. Then all of a sudden, when it did happen, there was a pawn shop on the border. He calls the FBI agents like, "Hey, there's some guys here from the cartels really trying to buy guns. What should I do?" "Oh, go ahead and sell them to them. We'll keep track." Next thing you know, those guns are being used to kill border agents. Don't get me wrong. There's enough people who don't like America already. You don't need to sit here and fuck with them to see if they're gonna do some shit. But the bottom line is, what do you do when you can't find news as a newscatcher? You create it. You see them doing this shit all the time. It's the same thing with these motherfucking government agencies. They're like, there's already enough people out there that don't like us. You're already monitoring everybody's phone calls. Why the fuck
But
do you need to sit here?
what is behind this? So that clip, that YouTube clip that's going around that talks about how now intelligence agencies are using Google, which is they created Google, and they're using YouTube to monitor the search history or what you're watching and what you're live streaming.
Yep.
Why? They're saying certain YouTube videos. Well, if it's on there, then it's already been, it made it through the algorithm. And you got hundreds and hundreds of videos that have made it through the algorithm. But we can't say certain words without our shit being taken down and being marked as medical misinformation when there's nothing medical about the fucking episode at all. Ladies and gentlemen, I
Amen.
got 15 to 20 episodes they've taken down of this show. And I can name the episodes and I can tell you what the episode's about. And you've listened to the episodes if you've been listening to this show from the beginning. And you would hear no medical misinformation. But I'm going to take this time to ask the question, what is behind this? What is really behind this? Why do some of the richest people in the world support communism and socialism? Why would they support what appears to be a pathway to their own destruction and downfall? Princeton and Georgetown universities and others have been associated with these dynastic families of the super rich. And they're pushing these ideas into the minds of young people who then take these jobs and become powerful people and have a lot of control. Bella Dodd, a former member of the National Committee of the U.S. Communist Party, was asked, who is trying to take over the world? Her answer is, I think the communist conspiracy is merely a branch of a much bigger conspiracy because communism was created as a false flag, as a psyop. And so the book, Tragedy and Hope, was written by Carol Quigley, a book that Bill Clinton talks about a lot, that Barack Obama talks about a lot. Bill Clinton considered Carol Quigley his mentor. So, Bella Dodd said she first became aware of the mysterious super leadership right after World War II when the U.S. Communist Party had difficulty getting instructions from Moscow on several vital matters regarding immediate attention. The American Communist Party hierarchy was told that at any time they had an emergency of any kind, they should contact any one of three designated persons at the Waldorf Towers in New York City.
Oh, wow.
Bella
Waldorf.
Dodd said whenever the party obtained instructions from any of these three men, Moscow always ratified them. They always backed it up. Well, that's interesting. What puzzled Dr. Dodd was the fact that not one of these three contacts was a Russian, nor were any of them communists. In fact, all three were extremely wealthy American capitalists.
Hey, Roscoe,
She
you said some
said
deep
she
shit.
really wanted to find out who's really running things.
Oh my God, that's crazy. So you mean to tell me it wasn't the Kremlin? It's not Moscow? Hey, when you were talking about YouTube earlier, one of the big things about that video that's going out about about the government wanting to see your search history. What's even crazier is the algorithm will send videos to certain people. Then after you send those videos to certain people, then they'll start like start searching. That's not the
So,
algorithm.
what they're trying to do is create a kill list.
Yes, come
So,
on.
it's like, all right, cool. If we know people who like this shit, let's put the shit out there. Let's put the porn out there so we can see who's a sexual deviant. Oh, okay. You like these kind of bang bangs? Cool. Gang bangs. You like this? We're gonna send you this. All right. So now you're this kind of deviant. Now we
But you weren't
have,
even looking at that. I mean,
but
if it wasn't
now
for
we
the
know this
algorithm,
type of porn you look at. Cool. We're gonna save that for later. We can always pull that up. Then, like whenever you try to like speak up and say some shit, be like, oh, well, this motherfucker like having sex with birds. You know what I'm saying?
we got you.
Right.
But that's what's happening. If the algorithm sends me a gun video, then I start looking at gun videos, and all of a sudden I'm an extremist. If the algorithm said, like, hey, this is you literally send me stuff about Black Power, then all of a sudden now I'm militant. Like you sent me some black videos, I
Well, you
start
must be.
going
You
down a
watch the
rabbit hole.
videos.
Yeah, I watch them
Maybe I
now.
was just
My
writing a
mind.
paper on that shit. What does it matter? You're on our list now.
And I remember like kind of the first time that I kind of understood that. But back, remember the movie Seven? Remember in Seven when Morgan Freeman is talking to Brad Pitt, he's like, everybody has a library card, and they go and they find this guy. They look at the books that somebody checked out. They have like, okay, these books are on art, these books are on
It's a paper
um
trail.
some, yeah, it was a paper, exactly. It was a paper trail, and so they look at who checks out these books. This is when the internet is just kind of, it's a big thing, and this guy was kind of anti technology anyway. So they're like, hey, here's a list of books, and there's about 3 or 4 people that checked out those books, and but when you put these books together, all of a sudden you have a profile. Like, okay, this guy checked out this, but this guy checked out books in all three, and referendum, and this, that, and other. But we ain't supposed to have this, and so we can't attack the guy directly, but they got an address. That's how they're doing it. They're finding information, but they're like, oh fuck a warrant, we're just going to go. We'll just get you for something else, or we'll kick the door in by accident. And y'all don't see a problem with that. People, because the first thing they say, oh, that guy's a criminal. He wasn't even being a criminal at first. He was just a janitor. Then you send it like my homeboy just said. You send him a bunch of pedophile stuff. Next thing you know, he's acting on some. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying it's wrong because he acted on it. But I'm saying that y'all motherfuckers dangled the carrot in front of these motherfuckers. And it's the same thing when it comes to these foreigners. A lot of these motherfuckers, yeah, they're in America because you make money here. They don't like America. They don't like what it stands for. But if you start saying certain shit, they're gonna cling to it. Our biggest issue we got is how come these foreign motherfuckers got so much grasp on our country. Like my brother just told you, if I try to get a credit card, they won't let me. But if you're a foreigner and this bank likes you, they'll give you a credit card. Now that's a secured credit card. So you got to put some money. There's some stipulations, but the fact that I've been here my whole life and you ain't offered me the same thing. I've
So
been here my
that
whole life.
brings us to black people in Chicago. They're seeing these immigrants being brought to old public schools and stored there, allowed to live in these,
Yes,
these old rundown public
but
schools that
or
they're
their kids can't
reconverting.
even go to school. That's deep. Come on,
So
they're
then,
taking your
so
kid out of
then, so
school.
then, these illegal immigrants are given by these NGOs. They're given credit cards or gift cards that have thousands of dollars on them. Hold on,
Yes,
man.
twice a month.
Hold the
They
fuck
get,
up. So, as a black person, you gonna
come
flip the
on.
fuck out. You're like, my man, y'all won't give us shit, no reparations. You get mad and try and gaslight black people. into talking about get reparations. You shouldn't be talking about that. You shouldn't be you shouldn't want that. That was so long ago. Hey man, you clearly don't have a problem giving these fucking people this fucking money, and you just days ago signed a bill that would give several $trillion to this bullshit ass war in Ukraine now. So let me get this right. So
You got money for everything but my black ass.
you want to support illegal, bogus ass wars. You want to give money to people who are here illegally, that are stealing shit and attacking American people. But you don't want to give no money to the people that built this fucking country for free. That's what you're telling me? That's what you're telling me. Oh, okay. So clearly, who is running the show are people who are not simpatico to the Negro cause. During World War II, Undersecretary of the U.S. Treasury, Harry Dexter White, was discovered by the FBI to be a Soviet agent. The White House was immediately informed, but instead of firing him or arresting him, Dexter White was appointed the new executive director of the U.S. Mission to International Monetary Fund of the United Nations, the IMF. He also received a substantial increase in salary, and President Truman knew that he was a Soviet spy. Why would men in charge of the world's massive financial problems want an exposed Soviet agent such as Harry Dexter White to occupy such a highly important position in the World Bank? And why, in the name of common sense, would President Truman approve such a thing? So, these people that are pulling the strings, see, it can seem like it's real confusing, but you always got to simplify all this shit. Because I'm going to make you motherfuckers fight each other to take attention from what I'm really doing, to get attention away from me. So I'm going to light a firecracker and throw it between two people that are standing next to each other. Those two guys are going to start fighting because one thinks the other one threw the firecracker at his feet. They're throwing blows. Meanwhile, I'm in my car driving off down the street and they don't know shit about what I did. This is what's going on here. This entire immigrant situation is not organic. It is created. Is it a machination of people who sit in smoky boardrooms figuring out how to move the pieces around on the chessboard? So, March 21st, 2024, several weeks ago, there was a TikToker named Lionel Moreno tells followers how to invade American homes and invoke squatters' rights.
Yes, come on with it.
He is an illegal Venezuelan immigrant, and he refers to squatters' rights or adverse possession laws, a common law principle that allows an illegal inhabitant to acquire ownership of a property based on a continuous occupation without the legal owner's consent. He said he has friends who have already taken about 7 homes and said the only way for immigrants to not live on the streets or be a public burden is to seize and invade abandoned properties. Serial squatters are overtaking homes, and helpless families are booted out of their houses by crooks and are desperately turning to vigilantes to reclaim their homes.
Batman, where are you when I need you? Look, this tell you see these articles, you read these things, you see. I think like Washington, like Seattle area, that's like the worst. Oregon, California. I know New York. I don't know about Chicago, Illinois area, but it's clear that these motherfuckers know the laws. Now, funny thing is, Roscoe, they don't try that shit down south, do they? I wonder why.
Yeah, because you get
They
shot in
don't
the
have.
fucking face.
Yeah, they don't have the same kind of squat. They don't have
But
that
what did
bullshit.
the sheriff in Florida say? Go ahead, run it.
Hey, the way he said, look, if you break into somebody's home, we encourage you to shoot somebody down here. We have classes. We just want to make sure the gun's legal. No, this is serious. We laugh, but down south they don't do this. They don't have those squatters' rights. Now, there are cases where that shit is necessary. You should not be booting some family out in the wintertime. I get it, but we're talking about months. We're not talking about years. There's a case, like I said, is up in Washington. I don't want to give the wrong information, where this woman owns a $3 million house or something. So, and this guy did an Airbnb and won't leave. And so he's like, yeah, if you pay me 100 grand to leave. So he said, if you pay me 100 grand, I'll leave. And then she can't catch the guy leaving because he works from home. So how would you imagine doing an Airbnb that a motherfucker not leave? Now, I can tell you what I would do. I would call some of the homies and handle you. And like, I don't know what happened. But the fact of the matter is, that's what's going on right now. You got people who are doing Airbnb, who know they can't afford this house. They'll make one, and what it is that the way the law reads in New York and the way the law reads up in Oregon, basically, if you sign a lease with somebody, they can't put you out without going to court. So the Airbnb is technically you signing a lease. That's what they're doing. Does that make sense? Like, and so like the one in New York where they were arresting the woman, she's like, I never signed a lease with this guy. But the guy's like, I signed a lease with her. I signed a lease with her. So so it becomes a civil matter. But if she goes in that house when he ain't there, the cops are arresting her. That's fucked up, people. But the bottom line is this. So they understand that if there's some kind of lease signing, then you can't just kick me out. So you got a motherfucker do an Airbnb for 2 or 3 days, living there for 9 months. I'm not going nowhere. I signed a lease with him. That's fucked up. And this is the kind of shit that this motherfucker is showing on his YouTube video from Venezuela. Like, yeah, come on up here. We can do this. We can do that up here. Now, I'm sorry, people, but if they're going to start some kind of war. There's going to be some kind of armed conflict. Again, my brother keeps telling you this shit's not organic. This is by design. This is a plan. They expect Americans to get fed up with certain shit and attack somebody. They expect foreigners to want to come up here because they don't like Americans to take advantage of it. At the same time, you still are sneaking in foreign nationals from the Middle East. You're still sneaking in motherfuckers from China. Yeah, but a black man can't start his own business. A black woman can't do this, and then an American woman can't do that. So this is what are you guys really planning here? And what's even worse is that we're telling you that many of these politicians, many of these business heads are from another country, so they don't mind fucking America over. As long as they make their money, they don't care if America burns, and they'll laugh when it happens. You have sick people over there in Israel talk about bringing on that Netanyahu is supposed to bring on the Messiah. They have all this biblical shit with the red calf. They were over here in America looking for red calves, and they have 8 red calves over there ready to sacrifice over there in the Middle East.
Y'all don't think nothing
Over
wrong
there,
with that shit?
say it. Come on.
Ain't nothing
This
weird
don't.
about that shit at
Yeah.
all?
This don't bother you. Netanyahu who don't even believe he's an atheist or a nihilist. Don't even believe in religion, but sure believes in bringing on the end of the world. Sure believes in all these traditions that he don't agree with. Yeah, these motherfuckers want to bring on the end of time, and don't mind if Americans are fighting while it happens because we're distracted by these. I'm not going to call when you say bullshit, it belittles what the incidents are. So I'm not saying bullshit, but we're being distracted by real things, but there's something really big going on that you're missing. And these things are distractions. Even the whole thing with Puffy, distraction. Don't get me wrong. He's a piece of shit, shouldn't have done it, yada, yada, yada. But it's a distraction. And then when you see them categorize him just like Epstein, where he had all this information, all these videos on politicians and athletes and entertainers and all that stuff, yeah, this exact same situation. So we need you to recognize that there's something going on in Israel that we all need to be paying attention to, and
Check
that
it
we need
out.
to be fighting against.
March 8th, 2024, about 3 weeks before that TikToker from Venezuela was talking about taking people's homes. U.S. District Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman dismissed charges against Heriberto Carbajal Flores, an illegal immigrant who was arrested in 2020 for violating federal law that prohibits undocumented immigrants from possessing guns. She found that the federal prohibition on illegal immigrants owning guns is unconstitutional. I'm going to repeat that. She found that the federal prohibition on illegal immigrants owning guns is unconstitutional. She found that the federal prohibition on illegal immigrants owning guns is unconstitutional. What say you?
Look, they don't. When you have people that don't even believe in our Constitution still benefiting from our Constitution, it's a problem. The fact of the matter is, the reason they had that prohibition out there is so foreign parties and foreign entities won't get over here and try to do an insurrection, try to take over the government. But you, and like I said, I do agree with the Constitution. If he says it's unconstitutional, cool. But y'all need to be putting stuff. Y'all need to be making these damn laws that y'all make for black folks in 2 seconds.
Wait,
Y'all need to.
wait, wait, wait. So let's talk about the Bacon Rebellion.
Yes.
So then, you know it very well, but what I'm thinking about in this situation is two things. This dude doesn't is not an American citizen, but yet I'm for black people during slavery protecting themselves with guns.
Period. Look, the first gun laws in this country before America was America. We're talking about the 1600s. You had when my brother brought up was the Bacon Rebellion. So you had white slaves and black slaves.
No, no, you had
White slaves,
indentured servants and then you had enslaved Africans. Two totally different things.
mm, uh, honestly, it's not as different as you thought. These motherfuckers were slaves. These white folks was getting treated like shit. That's what made them spark the
But they
rebellion.
was still white people.
Yeah, there was white people, and in fact, during that period, that's when those I forgot what the laws are called. Those are the laws where if okay, so if a black man married a white woman and that black man was a slave, that white woman became a slave. If a white man married a
Fuck
black
with niggas,
woman,
see what you get.
he's based yeah, like you marry a nigga, you're gonna be a slave. But if you were a white man, that rule didn't apply. So those are the misogyny laws of the 1600s. So when you talk about the Bacon Rebellion, so when these white folks they decided to rebel, they came up against their masters. They said, hold on, slow down. If you help us against the black slaves, we'll give you land and firearms. So the first gun laws in this country were for if you were black, you were not allowed to have a gun. But if you were a white slave and you helped your white masters, they gave you land and firearms. That is the Bacon Rebellion. You can look that shit up. And so I have a big problem with black folks that are for gun control because I'm like, don't you understand that was here for you? Gun control for you even was thought of. And so black folks love to support certain people, but you got to understand there's certain people ain't always supporting you. You- it, I feel that if you're a black person, you should have a gun in this country. Period. I don't care where you're at. You should have at least one in the house. Because if you want to look at the Klan, the Klan didn't act the same when brothers had guns. So I understand if a foreigner comes over here and they're applying for American citizenship, they should be able to get a gun. But if a foreigner comes over here and he or she is just over here and they're not trying to become a citizen, I don't think they should have a gun. I know that sounds bad. It sounds hypocritical. I don't give a fuck. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who come to our country just to exploit it and then go back where they came from or cause problems over here. Create babies and don't take care of them. We see the same shit in China. When all them Chinese people were over in Africa, there's a lot of little Chinese mixed babies now, and the motherfuckers went back to China. People come over and cause problems because, like my brother told you earlier, they have no allegiance to this country other than to make some money or cause some conflict. You see the same thing when you have Israeli, Jews, Hebrews, whatever you want to call these fake motherfuckers who are running around who hold political positions in this country. Secretary of Homeland Security is essentially a foreigner. And I get it. He's an American, probably been here 2 or 3 years, but his allegiance is not to America. And he's going down to Central and South America for doing work for another organization. That's a conflict of interest. How come nobody's calling him on the conflict of interest? How come that's not treason? That should be. If I did the same thing, if I was in charge of charge of in the NSA, I'm a black man in charge of the NSA, but I'm still doing something for my Caribbean roots. I'm sneaking my Caribbean people in. You know what I'm saying? My Haitians in. I'm sneaking them in. You would say that that's treason. Um, and hell, there's a whole thing going on in Haiti right now that we could be talking about. Um, Prime example. We always talk about the Clintons down in Haiti, and one of the big things that nobody seems to understand why we keep fucking over Haiti. Yeah, we fucked them over because of political reasons, but there's something else that nobody wants to talk about. And I sent this article to you. There's three huge fault lines. Haiti literally sits on three fault lines. And they just recently, Haiti, you keep hearing Haitians talk about their mineral. We have a bunch of minerals down here. We have the most gold in the Caribbean. We have this. Well, there's a big thing that happened in Cuba. So Cuba found a super deposit of oil underneath it. And America tried to keep that shit hidden for years. And so right now, Putin is helping Cuba pump the oil.
When you look at these scenarios and you see what appears to be a slow motion invasion at the beginning, which is now beginning to accelerate and quicken, it's beginning to gain momentum and steam, and it's moving toward a peak. The peak is going to be armed combat at some point. They're trying to create a civil war. They're trying to create a internal battle in America between American citizens, and this is being done on purpose. People cannot see this because they're too close to it. They're like a person that's extremely nearsighted and they're holding a book within an inch of their eyes so they can see and read. But they don't realize that they're sitting in a room where people with guns are just standing a few feet away from them, about to fucking put a bullet in their head, but you're staring at this book that's talking about men with guns getting inside your house, and those motherfuckers are already inside your house. And so you find yourself in a situation where you find out when it's too late. But that's why there are shows like this, to give you information so that you can be armed with this and you can be aware of this so you can call bullshit out publicly when you see it, to not support these programs and these movements. Though I have you thinking this lame ass way is the way to go.
You got to call them on their bullshit.
100%. 100%. But I just want people to understand. I want people to understand that these situations will only get worse from here. And people that you think are cool with you are not fucking cool with you. And this whole thing is one big ass psyop. And you think it's one group, but it's actually a bigger group umbrella, that small ass group you thought was running the shit is actually underneath. The way I just broke it down with the 1940s and the 60s, with people think it's communist, but it's something above the Communist Party that's controlling them.
It's
Very
bigger.
rich and wealthy people. It's way bigger than that.
Hey, I think people need to understand allies are not friends. And I think we get that shit confused. We use these terms like they're interchangeable. They're not. During World War II, Russia was our ally. They were not our friend. And we see that now because even during World War II, we were fighting against a common threat. They were still, that's when the Cold War began at the end of World War II. So you got to understand the term ally and friend ain't the same thing. And they'll say, oh, Israel's our ally. Nigga, please. They're not our friend. Pay attention.
Look, that's all I got. We out. Peace.
All about it.